Welcome to this week's Live with Bernard Keevy and Coach Phil Jokes. I will bring Bernard on shortly, but I wanted to start with a place that I always like to start, my friend Brian Monahan's book. So for those of you who don't know what the book looks like, hang on, it's coming up on the screen. It is Customer Delight 365. Because of what Bernard and I are going to be talking about today, I thought this was really an appropriate start for today's live. And that is, the customer's perception is your reality. Kate Zabriskie. Brian's take on this: your ability to perceive your customer's reality is directly proportional to your ability to deliver customer delight. And on today's topic, what Bernard and I are going to be talking about is objections. So let me get rid of the wonderful book and let's bring on the wonderful Bernard. Hello, Bernard. Good to see you, buddy.
Phil. Thank you very much for welcoming me to your online session, which I always find stimulating and interesting. So
Yes,
looking forward to another interesting discussion.
And we don't always agree with each other, which is totally okay. Because the intent of this, right, the thing that to me is important with the Business Renovator is three topics: sales, marketing, and mindset. All three of those, to me, make a triangle that work together. And what we're going to talk about today probably has something to do with mindset, but it's more specific around the sales process for us Canadians and Brits.
Well, mindset is central to your sales process anyway, isn't it? Because if your mind isn't right, you won't be selling much.
No, I mean, if you're not sold on providing the value proposition to your prospective customers, they're going to outsell you. They're going to give you or me an objection, and if we don't believe in what we do, we're going to believe their objection to what it is we're selling.
And I can testify, I've definitely tried to sell things in the past where I didn't really have that much confidence in what I was selling. And it definitely does adversely affect your sales performance. It really does.
You know, one of the things I talked about today on my earlier independent on my own live stream was I was focusing on a book by Brian Tracy, who I'm aligned with through Focal Point, and I'm a certified business coach, sales trainer, and leadership development guy. Thoughts are causes and conditions are effects. So I think this is really appropriate to what we're going to talk about. We're going to share a screen here and talk about the objections and have a conversation about that. There's one other thing. There's a couple of other things in here I wanted to bring up. I'll bring this one up first. Yes, you expect success. So if we don't expect a positive outcome, it's not likely it's going to happen. Is that, you agree or disagree, Bernard?
No, absolutely. You have to see in your own mind a successful outcome, and you have to feel the emotion of having that successful outcome. And the more you can do those two things, the more likely it is you'll have the successful outcome. And if you don't believe you're going to have a successful, there's a Henry Ford one, isn't there? Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. Basically, whatever you believe is likely to happen. So if you believe it'll be successful, it probably will. And if you believe it won't be, it definitely won't be.
Exactly, Mundo. So think like a winner and expect to win. I want to now bring on our slide deck that we're going to share with everybody. And it's this one right here. And Bernard Keevy, who is in England, is about 7 hours difference in time-wise, and a direct flight, I think, if I was from where I am, it's about a 9-hour flight. If I have to go to Toronto, it could be like half a day. But direct flights, you're not that far away. Anyway, Bernard Keevy is the guy on the bottom, all dressed up, very professional. He's already put in a hard day. When we finish up with our live presentation today, he's probably off to the pub to have a pint. Whereas,
well, I wish I was, Phil, but the pubs are sort of well, actually, they are open here now, to be honest, but our local one isn't. So, yeah.
Well, under normal circumstances, The point I'm making is he's at the end of the day, and if he wanted to have a pint, he could. I suppose I could too, but it's still in the morning. Anyway, moving right along. Let's go right into today's topic. So what about this? Only 6 objections.
And I've had them all.
Did you have to see a doctor? No, I'm just kidding.
You can't see a doctor these days.
No. Let's not talk much about that. Let's talk about the upside. So there's only 6 objections, and they're coming, Bernard. I promise they're coming. There's the first one. So the first one is budget, price, cost, finance, right? Would you agree?
I would, and often that's the catch-all for all the others, isn't it? Because they will always give that as the objection, even if it might be something else. So one of the skills required is to find out whether it really is that objection or whether it's one of the others. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, absolutely. So in the sales training that I deliver as a sales trainer, one of the things we make sure that our clients understand is in the sales process, price out of order can kill this opportunity. But price in the right order is just like a combination lock. If you have the numbers in the right order, the lock will open and you'll have success. If you talk about price too early, budget, and let the cat out of the bag, it's really hard to get back on track because they're thinking only about the money. And even though I teach, train, coach people to improve their sales skills, I'll go into a store if I get approached too quickly and too rapidly, I find myself the knee-jerk reaction is no, just looking, right? It's not so much the budget, but it's the same kind of thing. If they talk about, if I say, so what's the price of stuff? And they tell me right away, I probably lose interest because I don't understand what the value is.
It's fear, isn't it, Phil? It's exactly the same. You go into the store or the shop and someone approaches you too quickly. It's the fear. It's the salesman alarm that Big Al Schreiter describes it as. And it's the same with price and budget because people are afraid of making the wrong decision. They're afraid of looking stupid and looking foolish. And therefore, they focus on the price straight away if you allow them to. And they'll only get away from focusing on the price if they've got the emotion that they want the benefits of what it is we're selling. And that overcomes the fear of making the mistake. I don't think I phrased it well, but I think that's what stacks up.
So do you have a strategy or an example of how you've been able to manage to get beyond the cost price budget objection?
Well, the main one I try to use is if you get asked what the price is, then basically say, I don't know, or I'm not sure yet. First of all, it depends whether this is right for you anyway, because if it isn't, then there's no price. Secondly, it depends on, what option is suitable for you anyway. So can we come back to talk about that later? But let's look at what the options are first of all, and then we can come back and discuss that later. But basically what you try and do is postpone giving a figure.
Yes. And somebody wouldn't, I do something very similar to what you've just described there. And sometimes I found, and when I've broken from doing this and given the price, then I rarely get the completion of the project. But in the profession I'm in now, and I have been for the last 13 years, is when somebody brings up the price and they persist and go beyond what you talked about and they really want to know, I either do something similar to what you do, or I say, you know what, based on what I know about where we're going with this and what your business is about, I have no idea what kind of investment it would be. It could be like a $15 book, or we could be at this for 10 years, and there's a big spectrum. So me trying to give you a price right now would be unfair to you. Do you mind if we explore, which is kind of what you said, where you're at right now and see if this even a fit for you? Would that make sense? And usually that diffuses it and we move on. So a way the budget objections show up or sound like it costs too much, I can't afford it, Can I have it for less? Is there any others that come to mind for you?
There's one other that works in what we do, which is that if someone asks me what it costs, I have used, well, it doesn't actually cost you anything because, we'll be making money. So it actually doesn't cost you anything. You'll be making a profit on this investment. There's no cost involved at all. It's profitable.
Yeah, I learned one from the great Brian Tracy, very much the same as you. And if somebody asks that thing, what does it cost? Well, it's free plus a profit.
Yeah, free plus a profit. I like it.
Specifically with what you and I do. And then that's absolutely true, because for every dollar invested with us as a business coach, you're going to get $5 to $7 back. I think that's better than most stock options.
Is it just worth a bit more in terms of that objection when it does arise and it becomes a strong objection, is the idea of trivializing it? So the first question can be, well, so what figure did you actually have in mind? So to try and quantify the difference between what the cost is and what they thought it would be. And then the second thing to do is to try and spread that cost over the lifetime of the product. So for example, if we're £10,000 apart on price, but this is going to last you 5 years. So 5 years is 60 months. So 60 months is, 1,800 days. So we're talking about maybe the price of a cup of coffee per day. That sort of approach where you try and trivialize it to being something very small on a daily or a weekly basis, rather than something that sounds very large as a one-off sort of figure. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. My concern with that is if you do that too soon, too early in the sales process, then that's wrong. This is at the end. Yeah. Yes, if you've built up the rapport and the trust and respect and done all those other things, which is we're getting into those aspects of the other possible objections. Absolutely, I would do that. Matter of fact, I'm thinking about an opportunity I'm working on with a buddy of mine, and helping our client present the value proposition to their customer. And basically, it's like a cup of coffee a day to be able to stay top of mind with their customers. So my customer client gets it. We're just trying to help them come up with what are some of the possible objections that they're going to be facing when they introduce what we've introduced to them to their customers, so that they can get more business. And it's really inexpensive. But if we lead just with price and not the value and education part of it, then the price can be seen, well, it's a lot of money just to get right? So anyway, yes, the long and the short of it, yes, I agree with you, but it's all about where you place it in the sales process. Mm-hmm. Which then leads us to need. Now, my notes didn't change here, so that shouldn't happen. So need, what have you got to say about need?
Well,
I don't need it.
Is it need or is it want? Because someone, they'll buy based on wanting something, and unless they want it, they won't see that they need it. But as soon as they do want it, they will see that they need it. So want is the emotional, need is the sort of logical bit that justifies wanting whatever it is. So just because someone doesn't need something doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want it. So I'm thinking, for instance, of certain, brands of cars, or, the top of the range fishing rod, or whatever. But you don't have to need something to buy it, but you do have to want it to buy it. And then you have to convince yourself you need it to justify the purchase.
Well, that's a lot of words. It's really confusing.
Yeah, I know.
and my Word document that I was going to reference here, because there are some other things to talk about in terms of need, and I can't even talk today anymore. Must be the end of the month, and the lease is running out of my mouth. Actually, one more day and the month is over, isn't it? So that's probably true. My darn computer's decided not to work just when I wanted to dive in. Oh, I've got the wrong document. That doesn't help either. Here we go. This is what I was looking for. I just want to stride down. So a possible need objection is, this is an objection as to whether the client will benefit from this or whether they are actually have an issue with the pain. So that's what we're talking about here. What you're talking about is the emotional side of the sales process. People rarely buy what they need, but they, as you say, often buy what they want. And the difference between the two, as you said, is want is emotional, need is logical. So when we get on the other side and people make a decision to buy our service, products, or ideas, the first thing that happened was they were emotionally engaged with it, bought into it, they had enthusiasm around it, we transferred that to them, and then they justify the rationale for why they made the choice to do it. And if you listen to your own self-talk, you'll do the same thing. If you listen to those people you serve, I think you hear the same thing. Don't you agree?
I agree totally. Yeah. So in other words, the way of overcoming the "I don't need this" objection is to create the want in them, so that because they want it, they then convince themselves that they need it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So in this exercise, if you're a sales professional, if you're not doing this, do it. Think about what we're doing here. Come up with what are the responses to your objections, whether they're budget, need, and the next one. Here it comes, buddy. Click on the screen. Timing. Yeah. So speak to what does this foster up in your conversation?
Well, it's something like we're not in the market right now. We did something a while ago. It's basically they're not saying they don't ever want this thing, but they're saying that it isn't the right time now to do it. And so that may or may not be the case. But again, it comes down to if they want something strongly enough, then they'll want it, whether it's the right time or not. Really, the time isn't the time. There's a difference between an objection and a condition. So the timing might be something that makes it impossible to buy now, but more often than not, it won't be.
So when you hear, like in business coaching, which is what you and I specialize in, when it comes to hearing they don't have time to do that, how would you handle that? How would you address that?
Well, one of the answers, of course, would be, well, if you don't have time to do this, then that probably means you do need this, because if you can't find the time to actually work on your business the way you should, then you definitely do need help so that you can find the time to work on your business. So that can actually be, there's a word for it, but you can actually turn an objection around and make it the very reason why they actually should go ahead, rather than it's a reason why they shouldn't be going ahead.
Right. So that's where I was getting. So there's two approaches I would do, and tagging on to what you just said. If they say that they don't have the money, need, or time, if that shows up in any one of these cases, I would often pause and say, that's probably the very reason why we should get going today, right now. Yeah. Just as simple as that. Or the other one, I try and keep it short so that they don't have to overthink things. And I will mirror it back to them. They say, well, I don't have time right now. I would say, you don't have time right now? And I wait 4 seconds, at least 4 seconds. And 99.1% of the time, they will start talking more. And in the talking more, they'll tell me what's really going on in their head. Because I don't know about you, but I can't. I cannot take a book, except for this one, I read it though. But I can't take a book and just by the cover of it, tell you what's on the inside. So the same is true for the people we're serving. My experience is we need to get them talking and telling us what's going on in their thought process.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Do you know this guy?
I know this guy. Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
One of our coaches.
He is one of us. When it comes to price, if you offer 3 versions, value where they will be attracted to them. Oh, triplicate of choice. Yes, absolutely. I wasn't reading properly, Joe. That was not you. It was me. Actually giving them options when we get to the point of coming down to making a decision and going ahead. Great advice. And then he talks about needing is based on, is he saying the same thing as us?
Yeah.
Needing.
Well,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. It's based on their pain points. So what we're saying is that normally it's there's a word for it, but basically fear of loss or the negative is twice as important for people as the positive. So the pain or the loss that they're experiencing over something, the issue, the problem, is going to be twice as important to them as the potential gain, upside of something. And therefore it makes sense to sell to the negative, to the pain, to the loss, because that's twice as important normally to people as the positive prospect of, of a positive gain. So
yeah,
I think that's right.
I was just saying most of the time I agree with that. No restrictions, only opportunities. I agree with that. It's getting the people across the line and getting them to see that. That's what we all do as professional salespeople. Eric is kicking pizza services butts, products. He's expanding things and breaking records, and he's one heck of a awesome salesperson. And my buddy Callanan says hello.
Hello.
Let's go to the last of the main four, the consistent four. It's relationship. So what I get out of this is that we haven't built the rapport. And I don't necessarily, I did represent these budget, need, timing, and relationship. And in the training that I teach, I actually teach an upside down triangle. And you and I talked about this a couple of sessions ago. And the reason I do the upside down triangle is that most of the effort needs to be done investing in the relationship. And if we've done a really good job there, I find that the need, time, and budget ones become less relevant because the trust and the likability factor is so high that they trust us almost, what's the word, implicitly? Provide them with value and make sure that their buying decision was the right one. So I think I'm going to revise this next time I deliver this and put relationship as number one and then the other three underneath it.
Yeah, I think that the other three would be the objection that's raised, but you have to be careful because although they're raising one out of numbers 1, 2, and 3 as an objection, the real objection is number 4. I think that's basically what that's saying. So if you haven't got number 4 right, then one of the other 3 tends to come up as an objection, but it's called a smokescreen objection, isn't it?
Well, and that's exactly the reason why that if I was to deliver this again, and I've delivered this lots and I just had an epiphany, I would flip this to the relationship being number 1. Because if we manage the relationship, the other ones become less of an objection or even a condition.
Yeah.
And I've seen that with the people that I've been fortunate enough to work with, where they've changed the way they used to lead with donuts, coffee, and budget, right? And they were getting market, but they were competing on price all the time. So after the training they did with me, they changed it to being value oriented, working on the relationship, understanding their customers' business and their personal side of them, so that when they had an issue that they could solve for them, they were able to solve it based on what was important to the customer. So this is a great debate. I'm going to flip it. You can leave it where it is. Totally. It's totally up to you. And then the last 2 are the same. So I'm going to flip right to number 6. Just the clock just like we try to keep these to 30 minutes. We only have like 6 minutes left-ish. And we've still like there's 7,000 more slides. Not really. I'm just kidding. But there are more slides and we won't get to them all today. And it's really not about giving you a ton of information. The idea is to share some information that helps you along the way. Oops, let me go back to those first. So the technical industry specific type ones are different for everybody. Do you have an idea what would be one for what we do?
Well, for what we do, the objection I sometimes get is, and apologies for this, but because I'm over in England, I get, it's very American, isn't it? To which I go, well, yeah, but it's actually very global and we use it all over the world. And therefore, it makes sense that it's formulated in America, because that's probably more acceptable in a lot of countries in the world than possibly if it was not. So, but yeah, that would be an example for us, I think. And also an example for us would be, the videos are a bit, or the e-classes, there's something they don't like about that. That would be sort of a technical type objection, wouldn't it, really?
Yeah. So for those that are not British and those don't know, have never seen our e-learning systems, there are a lot of American voiceovers, and that's what he's referring to. So if you're British or non-American or not non-North American, then you may be put off with the accents. But I just said it may put you off, and I've heard that from my Aussie friends and others. It could be seen as a condition, but once you help them understand what the value proposition is and what it can do for them, then it becomes less. But you've got to get past that possible one condition where they don't like that accent, and that's their loss. That's too bad. Maybe not our ideal client. So that's another topic for another day. But there's budget, need, timing, relationship, and then 2 other technical. And if you understand all of those, we have a worksheet that you could go through if you wanted to get a copy of it. You can get that from, see if I can make this happen, see if I got this figured out. Just real quick. You could go to Coach Phil, phil@coachphil.ca. Send me an email saying that you would like to get a copy of the document, and I'll send it off to you. Happy to do that. Go back to sharing the screen for a minute. I'm gonna be a director one day when I grow up. And there we go. My friend Kellen has 2 awesome shows, and Eric has a pretty darn good show too. And one of the things I admire about what they do is they have a director that runs the show, and they just get to be on host presenters. Makes a difference. So objection handling. So you put some things in there. For 3 sentences, I believe you put 3 things not to do. Do you remember what they were?
Well, obviously you don't ignore it.
Right.
You don't try and answer it straight away. You acknowledge it, and you get them to rephrase it, and you listen, and you pause, and you ask for further clarification, and you only really try to address the objection once you've actually given them a chance to fully express it and to fully clarify exactly what it is that their objection consists of.
Yeah, so I have better notes than you because you gave them to me to use. So we both know how to use this naturally on our own, but to do this in a live stream is a bit of a challenge. It's a wonderful challenge, but it's a bit of a challenge. So don't argue, don't attack them to overcome their objections, and do lead them to allow them to find a way to answer their objection themselves. Those are a couple of ideal things. Some other notes that you shared with me, and I thought were brilliant, right on point. Hear them fully, feedback the objection to them, question to understand, like I did, the price is too high. So you want to get them to give you the feedback of what that really means when they said that, and then address the objection when the time makes sense to address it. And then confirming their answer are a couple of the things that you could do to handle objections. Man, there's all sorts of stuff in here. We're at the bottom of the half hour. So maybe we'll have a part 2 objections.
I was just thinking, I think that's definitely a good idea. Yeah.
And then what I'll do is I'll stop sharing just for a wee bit. And start sharing again, because this brings me to this. So one of the things we're looking for are some case studies or story studies, however you want to label them. And one way we do that, normally this is something we charge out 750 pounds or 750 quid or $750. But currently we're making this available until we get a collection of case studies that we can use for our evidentiary pieces. And we have this profit accelerator assessment where we can actually help find $100,000 of hidden potential in your business without you having to spend a penny on marketing and advertising. And at the end of the assessment, it takes about an hour to do. and then about a 30-minute review after we've done it. So first part would be let us know you want to do it. And both Bernard and I are qualified to be able to do this for you. We've done them lots of times for lots of people and got some amazing results most of the time. Absolutely amazing, unbelievably amazing in some people's eyes. However, it's really worth having a look. If you're a business owner and want to build your business and find some potential that's not going to cost you any money to do that, well, we welcome the opportunity and the challenge. And at the end of this, we'll give you our email addresses where you can reach out and ask one of us to do that for you. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you've expressed it very well, Phil. The figure sounds astonishingly high, and people say, how can you do that? But believe us, it really does work. You go through this process, and it's astonishing what money and revenue you can unearth in a typical business.
And if you're skeptical, absolutely, totally enjoy that mindset. If you're cynical, then, probably not worth your time to come and do it. But absolutely be skeptical. Come and have a visit with us for about an hour. And at the end of it, you will get the next 30 minutes, the second call, we'll be able to run you through the report we've come up with and show you where you can actually do what we just said. And it's different for every business. Some overlap sort of the same, but some things are a little bit different. So if you're interested as a business owner, or if you know a business owner that would benefit in this and was open to sharing their story with us so that we can use it as a case study moving forward, we'd greatly appreciate that and be a huge value for the people that take on the assessment. So I did promise that you would be able to find out how to get hold of us. And here we are. Bernard's the guy on the top with the different accent, and I'm the guy on the bottom with another different accent, depending where you're coming from.
And you've got the tie on. You've got the tie on.
Well, you're a very observant guy.
Bit of role reversal.
Exactly. So if you want to take us up on that, or if you want either that, or if you want to get a copy of the document I have that helps you quantify and establish what the objections are in your business, by all means, send us an email and we'll shoot that information to you. Until we meet again a week from today, I'm Coach Phil Jelks, and this is my friend, Bernard Keevy.
Thank you. And thank you for listening, everybody.
Have a great weekend.
And you.